Hi, I'm Fred. I'm Senior Policy Advisor at IPSE, and I'm joined today by Amritpal Gill for a fireside chat.
I'm Amrit. I am an IT consultant. I tend to work with legal and professional services firms in and around the City of London.
So, could we just start off in 30 seconds? Just tell me just a little bit about you and, in a nutshell, what you do as a freelancer.
Cool. I'm an IT consultant. I sort of treat that as me both being a roaming mercenary for hire for tech things, but also running a consultancy would provide kind of managed services for direct clients. Um, Freelancing is really fun. It's a massive area for growth as an individual. Like I started freelancing when I was 19, and I'm a lot better at my job because of that. I know it's a few years later. I'm 27 now, but it really does force you to grow as a person. And I think be kind. The thing I don't like is selling. It's way easier to speak to people you've got a relationship with and just be like, "Hi, how are you? Any projects going? Anything I can help with?" Than to try and speak to new people and say, "Hi, would you like to pay me for reasons that I am unobliged to tell you?" Like that's really hard. The freedom, the ability to grow as a person is amazing. The the art of business and selling, most people don't like it. Most business owners I know, most freelancers I know, would way prefer to be a helper and be collaborative. But in the end, you charge the daily rate or the market rate for what you're doing.
So, you started at 19. That's quite impressive because most people would have an employed career first,
Yeah.
especially in something like what you do. They'd have an employed career and move into that with contacts already built up and experience behind them. But you probably didn't have so much of that when you were 19. So
Not
how did
really,
that
no.
work out for you?
It's so I did a gap year apprenticeship, which I loved, and I worked at Herbertson Freehills, amazing law firm, learned a lot of skills, and then I tried to study archaeology in Sweden, which obviously didn't end well. So I came back to London and I was out of work for like 6 months, which was really hard. Um, I got a contract and I just started contracting because that was the work that I could get, and I was trying to find my way a bit. Uh, that was as an umbrella contractor, and then I eventually set up a limited company because a recruiter told me that would be the more appropriate thing to do. And I mean, hats off to these guys; they were really nice. Everyone else on that project was really senior to me. I was the most junior person, but they paid me the same rate. And so I set up a business, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually really cool. I now have the ability to do all these things." And I thought, why not stick with it? I've kind of gone full circle. I'm doing a history degree now for fun. So,
So before we started filming today, we were chatting about this idea of being able to start a freelance business for £100,
yeah.
and actually a lot of that really these days would just be the company's house fees. So could you tell me a bit more about that? Because surely there's lots of upfront costs for things like banking and bookkeeping that are going to take it over £100.
No,
No.
no, they really aren't. I mean, it's the company's house fee used to be £13. It's 50 quid now. So that's like your first half of your 100 quid. Banking, you can do for free. So I'm a big fan of Metal. So they're a NatWest bank. I liked the ad and I looked into them, and they've got a partnership with Free Agent. So Free Agent is a really uh, powerful, fully featured accounting system. Um, a lot of accountants for freelancers use Free Agent, but also, you can give it to more than one person. So if you have more than one person as a freelance team, easy. That's included with just having a Metal bank account. So that's £0 or 50 plus zero. For things like emails, video conferencing, hosting, I mean, that's also really cheap. If you haven't previously owned a domain, so like a .co.uk or whatever, you can get that for a quid for your first year, 99p. That's a typical deal that most hosting providers do. If you want a website, then you can go with a company like HippoServe, and it's like £3 a month for the first 6 months. And that's WordPress, which is really good because you can move that around really easily. So, over a 6 to 12 month period, yeah, you're going to spend about 50 quid on company's house and practically nothing on your banking and accounting, a few pounds on hosting. And yeah, I mean, for video calls, a lot of people just use Zoom, free version, or Google Meets. It's totally free. So no, you don't need a lot of money to start a business. Like, if you had a budget of, I've got 100 quid, this is all I have, it's very easy to do. So long as you are thoughtful about where you spend your money.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I suppose there are some things as well that might incur an extra expense to make you appear more like a business, which I think as a freelancer you are really a business. Um, Things like getting a proper landline phone. Do you think that's still something that people need to worry about, or having a proper email address with their business's name in it? Is this always essential for freelancers these days?
A lot of small businesses will just have an info at. And so, say you get web hosting and you've got a website, you can have that info app email. In terms of a landline, most places just don't have them anymore. I've got a customer who's 10 people and they're a government contractor. They all have work mobiles. I would recommend, so you don't get stalked and things by randoms, have a separate number, like a pay-as-you-go number or something. It might be £5 a month. It might just be a free SIM you use that people can call you back on. But that's more for like security and not being bothered by people. The last thing you want is on Christmas Day to have someone call you and be like, hey, I've got some work for you. And you're like, I'm actually at Christmas dinner. So that's worthwhile. Once again, you can get a free SIM. It doesn't cost anything. Landlines are not useful. Like, they're just not anymore. I rarely see them in signatures. Among most of my customers, I very rarely see a landline. If there is one, it goes to reception.
Yeah.
So as a freelancer, you don't need a reception. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
And we talked about websites as well. Hosting is one thing, but getting it built and making it look presentable and in line with what you want your clients to see you as, that's another thing altogether. Is that, again, another separate expense? You talked about WordPress. What can freelancers do there to try and keep things simple and cheap when they're starting out?
It depends how fancy you want to go. Like with any marketing, you can go really flush, or you can say, I want a very functional website which is to the point and addresses my target market. If you're a freelancer and you don't really know who you're trying to sell to and you're just starting out, WordPress is really good. If you're a multinational business, WordPress is really good. We've got customers who use WordPress in all sorts of ways. There are lots of templates which are for free, actually. So you can get a paid for template for like £8-9 if you really like it. A PT that I know has, he didn't actually have to pay for it because I referred him to HippoServe, and they have this partnership. So you got a professionally designed template that would otherwise be £60 at no cost. And he's making adjustments to it at the moment to relaunch, and he's moved from Wix. So yeah, it's you don't have to go really flush. Like, that's just, I mean, who you're trying to impress. You want them to pick up the phone and pay for your time. You're not trying to...
Something that struck me actually as we were talking about that is we're sort of assuming that a website is even a necessity. I mean, in my head it is, but there's so many other ways of getting out there and interacting with potential clients and networking with people. And there's so many social channels and platforms now. Do you think it's fair to say that there's possibly some situations where a website maybe is more than you need, and there's other ways of getting out there and meeting people?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to be, if you really just don't want a website and you're happy working from a Gmail or something, and to be honest, pretty professional anyway as a platform, you can use LinkedIn. Depending on what you're doing, TikTok, Instagram have shops and stores, and so as their own sort of platform, you can live there. I think it's useful to have your own shop, your own space, because your website is your shop front. But at the same time, if you are like, no, I make things by hand, I'm a tailor and I make suits and dresses on Etsy, and then Etsy is my go-to platform, it's okay to have high exposure if you know that's where your target market are. Because if you set up a tailor near, I don't know, central London, you only have the people going past you who can really buy from you. It's the same kind of thing. So yeah, Instagram, TikTok, social medias are really, really good for that. I have worked with one customer who had no website, no social media or anything, and it was 100% referral. And he could afford a couple of mortgages, so I'm sure he was doing well. So yeah.
One thing that's obviously really important for freelancers, having no colleagues of their own, is to be able to get out there and network with other freelancers, potential clients. One thing that I happen to know that you do is you actually run your own local networking group for freelancers in your area.
Yeah.
What prompted you to start that up, and how's it going, and what are you getting out of it as well?
Ooh, so many questions. Where do I start? Okay, I'll start with my event because I actually know that well, and and then I can talk about networking and my experience of it more generally. So yeah, ours is a pub meetup. So I walk 10 minutes up the road and pop into the pub and have a pint.
Ideal.
Yeah, it's a nice way to. It's a once a month thing, not every night. And the reason we started this was because I was looking for networking events for our target market, legal and professional services firms, in and around where I live in East London, and there just wasn't anything, like complete dead zone. And I thought, this is really weird. So I thought, why don't we try and do something? And we were initially going to go from, say, restaurant to restaurant and would have it as a bit more highbrow, but I went to my local gastro pub and thought, this is quite nice. I had a marketing temp working with me at the time, and I asked her idea, and she said, yeah, we could just run it here. So it was actually somebody else's idea that I've stolen. And yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that my team suggested this to me, because we've been running it for 18 months now. And we're not running one in December because no one really wants to go out, but been running it pretty consistently for a year and a half, and it's just a nice place to go. We get really good feedback, and it's really nice because I get people to pay to come and speak to me, which sounds really cynical, but you can spend so much money on Google Ads, you could spend so much time and effort going to other people, and then you're sort of on their turf and you have to prove why you're useful to them. Whereas if I have someone come to my event, well, one, they're buying me a drink, which I always appreciate. Two, they've got good company within the profession. And three, actually, there's so many barriers have already broken down. They're coming to break bread with me effectively, and that's a really nice way to have conversations. So one of our clients, they're a 100-person law firm. I had one of their senior lawyers come and join us for a drink, just invited him and said, why don't you come along? And it was a really nice, chill chat. And reputation, it really helps. I can also say that I've been running this event for more than a year. Yeah. And as of next February, I'll be able to say I've been running it for 2 years. And once again, it doesn't cost me anything. We just book the thing on Eventbrite, and my pub just has like a Design My Night page. So you can just book a table for 5 people. So you create an event on Eventbrite, chuck your logo on it, and just East London Legal Networking, and then it's done, really. If people come over, they do. If they don't, they don't. I have had events where no one has turned up. But once again, I've not lost anything but 10 minutes up the road to grab a pint. So it's really not a problem. And networking generally as a freelancer is really important. It can be really lonely if you just work by yourself and you're in your own head, in your own space, and you've got no one around you to be creative with, to share ideas with, to collaborate with and deliver work, because a lot of freelancers will look after each other too and refer work over to people. So the lack of a network is actually a massive opportunity kind of lost for any business and any business owner. There are lots of places you can go and do networking and events, and there are kind of paid for marketing companies that just run events for businesses. And Eventbrite is where I tend to live for this stuff. Someone I know likes locals. I don't know what that is. I think it's a young person thing. But yeah, like Eventbrite's pretty good for that. If there isn't a networking event where you are, make one, because it costs you nothing and it gives you the platform to sell to other people. Because once it exists, actually, you're in someone else's turf. At least that's how I think of it. I don't tend to pay to go to networking events unless there's drinks and it's like a party or something. And also, just being out and about, actually. So I met a lawyer from the US at a comedy club on a date last week. And that was just nice and chill, and it was very natural. So just being open to speaking to people. I get that for some people it's really uncomfortable and it can be really awkward. But when you're networking, you're not selling. Like that's not the point of networking. When you're networking, you're there to speak to people, exchange deets, kind of get to know each other and be like, oh yeah, cool, maybe we can work together, but you seem all right. You know, are you a trustworthy person I can do business with? It's not about, are you going to buy my stuff right here, right now? Let me just get my card machine up, because that's just not how networking works. So people have the wrong idea about it. It can be really fun, relaxed. It can be really nice. And I've made good friends by going to networking events. And I definitely have a much stronger rapport with people, especially our customers who've come to our networking events, but also people I want to do business with, because I can invite them. Even if they say no, I can invite them and say, well, why don't I treat you to dinner at one of our events? Our next one is on Thursday or something. And it's a really nice way to just offer some hospitality to someone who probably doesn't want to speak to you. I mean, if they're a cold lead or something, you're in their face and you're in their way, and yeah, it's a really good icebreaker. Does that kind of answer the? Yeah, I mean, I know that we, like as an IPSE thing, we had the IPSE local meetups, and I think as freelancers we kind of need to own this a bit more. Like, I'm busy enough with my event, but I would happily go to an event another IPSE member did. And if they said, if you're an IPSE member, there's a discount of 10% or something, I'd be like, oh, I'm an IPSE member, why don't I go over there and do that? And it's something that we can run across the country because there are freelancers across the country. And, you know, if you don't make opportunities for yourself and create that work for yourself, then you're going to fail as a freelancer, really, because that's what running a business is kind of making opportunity out of nothing.
And you mentioned obviously getting out there, just being out there in the world and just encountering people.
Yeah.
Do you ever change where you work as part of that as well? Do you sort of work in like public spaces or co-working spaces, places like that?
Yeah. So near where I live, there's an office space that I used to rent out. I'm not really using it much at the moment, so it's just a shared desk thing. That was at Docklands, which was nice. It was convenient for me. As an IPSE member, I've got &co. So if, for example, I wanted to go somewhere nice like Richmond, I could probably find a place to just chill out there. Definitely where I live in and around East London, Mile End, Stratford, you've got the Moxie Hotel, lots of places that I know that if I need to just go there and chill out, that's very easy for me to do. In between meetings, I just want a change of space and pace. That's really important. Like, you can't work in your bed at home. Like, that's not really a place you should be running a business. And it's really important to, like, when you're just grabbing a tea or something, you just bump into people. Like, life is really strange like that. Yeah. So co-working space is really good. It puts you in a work mindset. When I'm at home and I'm like 2 minutes from ice cream, bed, TV, it's really hard to focus, I'll be honest. And there are times where I really don't want to. A few days ago, I just had a really busy morning. So I'm going to play games for the evening and just chill out. And then 5 hours passed, and I was like, I've not really been as productive as I wanted to be. If I was in a co-working space, that'd be so annoying. I wouldn't do that. I'd be too embarrassed to just be playing games while everyone else is working away, right? So it's really nice. Like, co-working gives you a positive energy around your environment to actually do things. It's a bit like going out for a run. Yeah, I'm not sure if you run. No.
Yeah, no, not so much these days. Yeah,
no, it's good.
So think back in time to when you first started out as a freelancer, the moment you realised I'm in business now. If you go back in time and speak to that person, what advice would you give them?
So much. So when I started a business, I always sort of looked to bigger businesses because that's what's visible, and I thought I need to run my company, run my freelance business as one of these 50-person or 100-person or 2,000-person company, and that was really dumb. And I wish I spent more time to think about it. I sort of slid into being a freelancer, being honest. It just sort of happened. But I should have then taken a step back and said, okay, like, what is this? And that's cost me a lot of money over the years. So, so a lot of people try to sell you things when you're new to business, or just generally, and that's fine. It's their job too. But at the same time, you don't have to spend that money. You can just say no. You can be really honest about it. You say, I don't have the budget, or actually just don't need that. Like, sorry, but no, I don't need a Lamborghini every day kind of thing. And that's really true for marketing, especially when you're starting out. You're really keen to get your name out there, but you just cannot beat hard graft. So, if I had to wake up half an hour earlier and just be on social media or work on a blog or something, would I rather do that and spend half an hour, or spend half a grand for someone else to kind of do that for me? But they don't know my business, they don't know me, they can't speak like me or any individual. Like, they are naturally going to be more generic and more corporate. And that's not what your strength is as a freelancer. It's about your personality, and you're putting yourself and you being central to the service. You're the principal consultant or the kind of main deliverer of the work. So paying someone else for that is really dumb, I think. Google Ads, that one only cost me about 200 quid, but I realized it was very stats focused, and actually you don't really get a lot back from Google Ads. Referrals is way better. I have spent many years building relationships with recruiters, because it's easy to sell to recruiters because they sell for me, right? I pick up the phone and say, hey, have you got anything on? They say, yeah, actually, I have a project. When are you free? I say, oh, I'm in a couple of weeks. And it's like I'm meeting up with a mate rather than trying to have a meeting with a finance director or something. So that's something I'm really happy I did. But the marketing side of things, no. Like, I mean, £200 of Google Ads is not a lot of money. I've lost like 15 grand running spaces at the Excel Centre for different business events. This is post-lockdown, so it's sort of my fault. I should have put my head in the sand like everyone else and said, it's fine, everything will be okay while the building burns behind me, and not spent that money. And I shouldn't have gone for a big launch. And actually lots of small launches is way better than big launches. Iterating small products. Don't spend like 8 grand to be somewhere for a couple of days hoping that a few hundred people walk past you who want to spend money, because that's not what happened to me. Some people have a really good outcome with these things, but you can go to small business fairs and markets or run networking events, and there's so many way more cost efficient ways of doing that than being at the Excel. So I would give myself a slap on the wrist for that, to be honest, a couple. And in terms of other things like pride, like actually when you run a freelance business, you are working things through all the time. You don't have the machine behind you. So it's okay to be really proud of what you've done and the quality of the work you've delivered, and think that as part of your sort of repertoire, because every contract you deliver is another notch. And your first contract is probably going to be the hardest you get as a freelancer. After that, hopefully you've done a good job and you've done your best, and you'll start to have contacts. The other thing, which is really basic, and I wish I was more comfortable with this when I was younger, is just picking up the phone. I shouldn't really say that, because my first ever job was actually to pick up the phone and do support stuff, but it's still weird, like just picking up the phone and calling people and saying, hey, like, do you have any work on any projects? I'm now far less ashamed to just message people I've worked with directly in the past and say, hi, I have capacity in the next couple of weeks. Do you have anything on? If they have nothing going, totally cool. If they do, you might just made 20 grand because you bothered to pick up the phone or send someone a note on LinkedIn or something. And I'd rather have that money in my bank than not feel a bit awkward for a bit. So when you're a freelancer, you make mistakes. It's part of the learning process, right? Try to be safe in the mistakes you make. Try to not make expensive mistakes if you can, and just be really focused on what you want to do. There will always be detractors and people who say you shouldn't do that thing. Like, why are you running a business? My mum has spent 10 years telling me that I'm crazy for running a business and I should just become a staff member. And then I remind her that we are in a recession. Most people are getting laid off. And the stability of a full-time job is not quite as material as it used to be. So yeah, like it's one of those things where I've made lots of mistakes. I'm glad I have, in the sense that I've learned from them. And the kind of advice that I give to customers of mine and business owners is a lot better. For a 27-year-old to kind of have these experiences is really valuable. I'd still rather have the money. But it's quite good. I can demonstrate a level of knowledge that other people don't do. And that's through making mistakes, but safe mistakes. Not like I'm going to bank on everything. Like one thing I didn't realize until the pandemic is that if you run a limited company, don't take out a loan under the name of your limited company, because then you've made a personal guarantee to that. So then you've just defeated the point of it being a limited company. I mean, I learned this at an IPSE webinar, mind you, but like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. The limited company, if someone has it, is a vehicle to do business. It's not your name. It doesn't have your fingerprints on it. No one really cares about it. It's, where you get your bank account registered against and where you send your invoices from. The rest of it is you as an individual, as a specialist in your field. So yeah, like I got too attached sometimes to my company, and it's actually just a thing. It's an old banger. My first company was a banger that I was using to drive around and get to places. It wasn't really, it wasn't my life.
That's quite a nice analogy. But I suppose what I'm hearing overall is growing a thicker skin is super important, whether it's being able to say no to people. I mean, I can sort of say for myself, when as an employee, it can almost feel rude to dismiss out of hands these offers that come in at you.
We're really bad at this, and people are naturally really helpful. So, you find it hard to say no to people because you want to help. And that's a really natural response. People are actually quite nice. However, you also have to just be really cost conscious, and you've got a budget. And, like, even if you say I've got no budget, people are, oh, you're just saying that. It's like, no, my budget is 50 quid. I'm like, never mind. I've had a bunch of people call me about like managed outreach. So like appointment booking, trying to call people and then say, hey, I've got a lead for you. And I'll be like, yeah, well, my budget's like £100 a month. And I'm like, oh, never mind. And then that's a conversation killer. And it's really good to know how to be awkward. So yeah, have a thick skin, but also just know how to deflect and get people to not try and sell you things. You don't always need everything, like I've just said earlier, you can run a business for less than 100 quid. You really don't need someone to say, spend 10 grand with us and I can guarantee you stuff, because actually you'd rather that other people spend 10 grand on you. And that's a way better approach to doing things. Being cost conscious is being good at business. Invest where it makes a real difference. And for some people that's going on holiday. For me, that was hiring staff and growing my business, and I've had my staff to kind of go up and down over the years, and that's fine. But a thick skin is important. Like, the other thing is that some customers will try to sort of make you feel bad about the quality of your work. A lot of freelancers pride themselves on the quality of the work. It's a big part of my identity, being good at my job. If I was rubbish at my job, I would just get a salary somewhere and keep my head down, do the minimum amount of work. I don't like doing that. I like doing the absolute best I can and really putting everything into a piece of work. You might have some clients who kind of critique your work in order to try and get that emotional response from you, where you're like, no, I have to do better. I have to make this right. I have to make good this piece of work. And actually, it might be out of scope. It might be something you didn't agree. It might be to a standard that they've not paid for. And you have to sort of be willing to accept that sometimes you do have other things going on and people get what they pay for. As a freelancer, you should deliver the work at the standard of like required. I've lost a lot of weekends working hard, and it's been good, and it's helped me build a rapport with people who matter and recruiters and stuff. But actually, long term, some of the clients I've spent lots of hours on have actually been the ones who've not invited me back for work. Not because I did all the work, it's just that they didn't have that culture of valuing supplier relationships. So I don't really want to work 12 hours on a Saturday night, or like I'm really quite kind of 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I'm kind of done. Cheeky look at my emails, the odd phone call, that's fine. But the days of me waking up at 8 on a Saturday to kind of, oh no, I have to get work in before everyone else is awake at home, that's long gone. It's not worth it. Like, I'm less productive if I'm tired all the time. So it's just not worth it.
Absolutely. So could you just remind me, when did you join IPSE? And how are you finding it? What are you getting out of it?
I joined IPSE years ago. I was referred to IPSE as part of like a IR35 questionnaire that a solicitor gave to me. So, are you a member of any professional bodies, e.g. IPSE? And I was like, no, these guys? So I looked it up and it's like, this looks awesome. So yeah, I've been a member of IPSE for about 5 years now, I think.
Okay.
Maybe a bit more. I'll maybe correct on that later. 5 or 6 years. It's been really useful. You've got the Markel templates for like contracts, their kind of guidance stuff. The webinars are really useful. I've learned a lot over the webinars, especially with kind of the chief accountants like Markel and stuff who've spoken about things and have really kind of solidified in my mind that actually I am a freelancer, which has been really good for my kind of mental well-being, but also it's allowed me to be more efficient in how I structure my affairs. That sounds really professional, but you know, like it's I'm better with money because of IPSE.
Yeah.
And like on that number, like on that, IPSE membership is basically free in my head. So I use the freelance membership. So it's not the most expensive one, but I still get the & co-working space. That's worth like £200+ a year anyway. So even if I joined IPSE just for the co-working space, it pays for itself. And that's just like one thing. And then this is the thing about IPSE I really like each and everything, be it the IPSE rewards, the opportunity to get discounted legal or tax advice, the templates, like everything which just helps you on a day-to-day kind of, I don't have to spend hours looking for things, but also just, it really does pay for itself. I don't even think about how much my IPSE membership costs me, to be honest. Like it's one of those things that you would just have. I've been a member for a long time and it's just a thing now, like it's an essential part of me being a freelancer.
Amritpal, thanks so much for coming in today. It's been really, really interesting to find out more about your journey and how it's going for you as a freelancer. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for like bringing me here to just talk about my experience and to be honest, my mistakes. It's been a really good learning process and I'm still learning and I'm still having fun. Freelancing is it's definitely a vocation.
That's great. Thank you. And thanks very much for joining us for this one.